100 years ago, the forces of Kai were resurrected, ferocious evil spirits rose up, threatening the human realm. Enraged monsters stand in the cloud, one of which looks like a gorilla with a toothy mouth on its stomach, others look like a pterodactyl and a huge worm. But, fortunately, extraordinary abilities were awakened in people. The first awakened ones fought fiercely against evil. People in armor with weapons fight with a huge red dragon. They established 4 great outposts to protect the people together. Yu Shang had lived in Moj, a crime city, since he was a child. Yu Shang, moving quickly between them, stabs several men with a knife. Yu Shang touches the blue sphere with his hand, and behind him is a red egg-shaped sphere. A voice called out, 9 patterns. Yu Shang speaks to the police on the phone and informs them that a sexual crime will occur in Sophie's hotel room 302 at 8 p.m. today. With a calm face, he added that the buyer of sex services is his father. A man with a beard, armed with a wooden baton, looks in surprise at the main character running at him. As he ran past him, blood gushed out of the man's hand and he dropped the baton. He grabbed his arm with a cry, Yu Shang holding a blade in his hand with a grim face. A man in a coat with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and a goatee and looks intently at the back of the main character's head. Someone points a finger at the main character on the screen and says that this guy should be interested. Night, brick houses with windows with lights on. On the table is a perfume, a book, and a note that says, Hotel Sophie 302. Looking in the mirror with a smile and brushing her hair with a comb, Yu Senshui says that at 40, a man is like wine. As he sprayed perfume on himself, he turned to the protagonist and told him that the food was on the table. If he wanted to eat, he could warm it up himself. Yu Shang, without looking up from reading the Moj legislation, replied that he understood. Opening the door, Yu Sanshui told him not to stay up late, reminding him that he had exams tomorrow. He replied indifferently that he knew, announcing with a smile that he was going on a date, and that he hoped Yu Shang would pass well tomorrow. He left, slamming the door. Yu Shang dialed the emergency number on his phone and called the police, telling them that there was going to be a sexual crime in Sophie's hotel room 302 at 8 o'clock that night, and then telling them that he was sure he had seen the room number. He repeated the question that had been put to him on the other end of the line, how they were related, to which he replied that the other was his father. Then the main character said that everything is in order, and he serves the people as his duty dictates. As he sat down at the table and started eating rice and broccoli, he thought about the wake-up ceremony tomorrow, wondering if he would actually be able to reveal the patterned face. He added that he didn't know where it came from in his head, like a scroll of the dead, and wondered if anything would change when he woke up. Half an hour later, there's a small pile of clean dishes in the sink. Yu Shang is sitting on the sofa again, reading a book. His phone rang, and he wondered if the cop had accidentally dialed it. He answered, and a voice from there cursed and complained about his bad luck and said he didn't know what they had given him, but told him to quickly take the money to the police station and pay bail for him. Yu Shan calmly replied that he didn't have any money, indifferently continuing to read the book. Yu Sanshui shouted that there was a key under the bed in his bedroom, and told them to open the back door of the house next door where Widow Wang lived, and that the money was right under the vat of billets. Sitting next to the vat, the main character counts the money, thinking that 2,000 is also not bad. His phone rang and he picked it up, saying that he was related to Yu Sanshui. Yu Shang then replied that he would not pay bail, and explained that breaking the law should be punished by re-education, and asked him to re-educate him properly to make Yu Sanshui a useful member of society. Then, with a serious face, he repeated that they should make him a useful member of society, explaining that this has always been a positive force that the Moj has spread, and they should honor and protect these foundations. Yu Shang is running down an alley in the rain, holding the hand of a girl, both wearing shabby gray t-shirts. The girl shouts at him that he didn't let them catch up with them. Yu Shang sees the arrows flying at him and dodges them. A crowd of armed men runs after them, a voice telling them to be faster. Yu Shang and his companion discover a wall of barbed wire in front of them, and he realizes that they have reached a dead end. The men caught up with them, and one of them, wearing a red vest and a mohawk, armed with a baseball bat with nails, shouted at them that they were still running, called them freaks, and said with a grin that he thought they also wanted to leave their Zui city. Pointing the bat forward, he shouted at the others to kill them, and the men ran towards the main character. Yu Shang and the girl took out their knives. Quickly moving between opponents, the main character strikes opponents with a knife. The main character looks around at the bodies of his pursuers lying on the ground, and the girl tells him that he can leave. Yu Shang glanced at the card that said pass. He walked through an open, huge gate that let out a bright light. The main character woke up, got up in bed and looked out the window. He is walking down the street, surrounded by young people who were having fun talking to each other. Two guys next to him were talking about how they were so worried last night that they couldn't sleep a wink, and one of them added that he didn't know if he could wake up and pull out the patterned ones. The main character enters the building. It says prep class on the door. A homeroom teacher named Liu Qingfeng with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and a small beard announced that the awakening exam would start in an hour. The students looked at him enthusiastically while Yu Sheng looked out the window indifferently. Liu Qingfeng said that perhaps they were now hoping to awaken themselves and pull out a good talent, and told them to try and harden themselves, then kill the evil spirits, conquer the city, and gain everyone's respect. Clenching his hand into a fist, he told them to drown their enemies in their blood, help the people prosper and make themselves respected, and added that if they seemed to be behind serving the people, then why did they even try? Liu Qingfeng put his fist to his chest, and the disciples raised their fists in the air and shouted, "Help the people prosper, serve the people." Yu Sheng continued to stare indifferently out of the window and said, "Or the people who are being served." Liu Qingfeng paid attention to him and thought, "This little fool." Then he looked at the clock on his hand and said that the time had come and sent everyone to the wake-up point. Looking at Yu Sheng's back as he left, he thought that he didn't know how many patterns he would wake up to. Students are standing in a soccer stadium, forming 3 lines in front of metal detectors, behind which are tables with a blue sphere and a blue holographic screen. The guy in the purple jacket, touching the sphere, shouts that he has 4 patterns and rejoices. The man in the suit next to him, holding a black marker and a piece of paper, smiled and told him that he had a good talent, and if the power system hatched, he would join the police department, and that he didn't have to worry anymore. Since the resurrection of Kai, the animals have increased in size and become stronger. Extraordinary powers were also awakened in people. During the awakening, an egg appears behind the person. The patterns on it determine the abilities of the awakened one, and the maximum number of patterns is 9. A guy in a black coat is standing in the middle of the lights, an orange egg behind him. The one who awakens all the patterns will be the greatest living being. Liu Qingfeng announces that Yu Sheng is next. The main character enters the arch of a metal detector, and it makes a sound. Liu Qingfeng asks if he has any metal objects, and he says that he always carries a pair of knives for self-defense. The latter told him to pull it out, explaining that the awakening equipment was very expensive and the metal could affect the test results. Yu Sheng agreed and placed on the table many knives, kunai, and shuriken that were hidden all over his body. Liu Qingfeng asked if there were any more, and the latter replied in the negative. A guy and a girl who are looking at him in surprise from behind ask who this guy is, noting that he hides a lot of weapons. Yu Sheng walked through the metal detector's archway again, and it beeped again, and Liu Qingfeng asked irritably if he had anything else. The main character assumed that this was his iron will, and the latter, angry, shouted at him to pull out. Yu Sheng took off his jacket and dumped out a few more knives, shurikens, and kunai on the table, saying that there was definitely nothing else now, thinking that he was left without trumps. This time, the metal detector arch missed him. He touched the blue sphere, and a huge red egg appeared behind him, and the screen in front of him announced 9 patterns, which shocked the surrounding people. Yu Sheng pointed at the sphere and indifferently told the teacher that the equipment was broken. He protested that it was not broken, after which the main character smashed the sphere with a blow of his fist and said that it was broken. The teacher agreed that the equipment was broken, smiling nervously. Liu Qingfeng grabbed the main character's wrist and, after announcing the damage to public property, told him to go with him. He summoned a huge blue bird and they began to fly away, climbing on top of it. Yu Sheng noticed someone in the stadium and was surprised to see that the scroll had reacted. Liu Qingfeng and Yu Sheng are standing in the principal's office. The director, looking at the paper, states the name of the main character, that he is 18 years old, and that he entered them 6 months ago. Raising his gaze to Yu Sheng, he asked him about the fact that he was from the crime city. Liu Qingfeng repeated the words about the crime city thoughtfully as he looked at the main character. The brown-haired girl standing next to the headmaster did the same in her mind. Yu Sheng thought about what he knew the scroll revealed when it woke up, and wondered what kind of power it was, and what the drawing on the scroll meant. Liu Qingfeng put his hand on the main character's shoulder and drew his attention to the fact that the director was talking to him. The latter came to his senses and looked at the headmaster, who thoughtfully folded his hands in front of his face. The director thought that he was lucky because he had an egg with 9 patterns, adding that he was from the crime city. He looked at Yu Sheng with a serious face and asked if one day he would wake up 6 or even 9 times, what would he do? He confidently and loudly replied that he would serve the people. The director was surprised and wondered if he was really from the crime city, noting his lofty thoughts. Then he asked him what he used to want to do, and Yu Sheng said that his father went to see prostitutes yesterday, and Yu Sheng personally reported him and asked if that counted. The headmaster wiped his forehead nervously as the girl behind him covered her mouth in a grin, and told him to rest and not tell anyone about the results of the awakening, adding that he would figure out what to do next with his studies. Yu Sheng thanked the director and said his goodbyes as he headed for the exit. When he got home, he noticed that someone was inside. A guy with red hair is squatting on his heels, covered in blood, and looking into an open closet, holding a black piece of cloth in his hand. He notices that someone has arrived. He looks cautiously around the corner, knife ready. Then he is shocked to find a knife held up to his throat, and Yu Sheng is behind him, telling him not to move and telling him that his blade is right next to his aorta, and if he pushes a little, the guy will die. He added that he hated mopping floors. The guy replied in fright that he was just looking for medicine and did not hurt anyone. Yu Sheng pointed his finger to the side and told the guy that the medicinal potion ahead was on the second shelf. After a short pause, he asked the guy why he didn't take medicine, noting that he was seriously injured. The guy, nervously grinning, said that he didn't need it, and the main character thought that he still took the dagger. Looking at the knife, the guy asked if Yu Sheng wanted to kill him, to which the latter replied that it was against the law to kill outside of the crime city. Exhaling, the guy told him that he owed him his life and asked if he needed his help. Yu Sheng asked him if he owed him money and if he could kill himself. Gritting his teeth in surprise, he wondered if the main character was short-circuited because he was saying that he didn't need his life. He explained to the main character that he was a murderer and offered to kill someone for free for him. Yu Sheng asked him to kill himself again. The guy gave him a disappointed look and shouted that he hadn't done anything to him and asked why he wanted him dead. The main character told him that it was because he broke into his room and soiled his floor, and that if they were in a crime city, he would have died on the doorstep. The guy asked in surprise that he was from a criminal city and said that this could not be, because in a criminal city there is a daily quota for acquitting one person, and the main character is very young. Yu Sheng replied that he talked a lot. The guy admitted that he had said something stupid and told him to start since he had screwed up and raised his head to reveal his neck. He mentally bid farewell to the world and thought about how he would definitely become the best assassin in the world in the next life. Closing his eyes, Yu Sheng stood motionless. Opening his eyes slightly, the guy noticed that he wasn't dead yet and asked the main character why he didn't start. He replied that it was illegal to kill outside of a criminal city. The guy yelled at him in frustration that if he wasn't going to kill him, let him go. The main character refused. The guy drew attention to the fact that he constantly talks about the law and told him that he constantly talks about illegality, reminding him that holding someone against their will is a crime for which the Criminal Code of Moj provides for a penalty of 3 years in prison, and in case of a serious violation 5-8 years in prison. Yu Sheng asked him how old he was, and the boy replied that he was 17. The main character realized that he hadn't woken up yet and removed the knife from his neck, placing it in the scabbard on his back. He told the guy he could go. He asked if he really could go, and the main character waved his hand and said goodbye as he left. Happy that he was finally rid of the main character, the guy ran for the exit with all his might. As he neared the front door, he smiled, glad to be free. As soon as he came out, Yu Sheng caught him by the t-shirt and told him to stop, then dragged him back into the house. Lying on the floor, the guy asks the main character what he is doing. He replied that the man had left the room and he did not restrict his freedom, so it was not considered illegal detention. The boy's mouth dropped open as he stared at him. Yu Sheng told the guy that he was seriously injured, so he better not move again and he will bring medicine. Then he threw him soap and a brush and told him to wipe all the blood off the floor. After opening the medicine box, Yu Sheng turned around and noticed that the guy was actually wiping the floor. He handed the guy mopping up the floor a jar of medicine. The guy thanked him, and the main character said that he forgot to say that he had expired. The guy got angry and stared at the main character, and he noticed that his energy is born from negative emotions, but he still needs to call them. A white energy like smoke touched Yu Sheng's head and enveloped the scroll. Yu Sheng told the guy that he was joking and the medicine was normal, and told him to eat it, otherwise he would die due to blood loss in 32 minutes. The guy, taking off his shirt and sitting on the floor, bandages the wounds with a bandage. Yu Sheng sits across from him and notes that he doesn't look like he's ever killed, and asks if he's really the killer. The latter replied energetically that he had only missed once and asked for time, adding that he, Lai Yihan, would definitely become the greatest assassin. Lai Yihan then turned away, saying that he wouldn't understand anyway. Yu Sheng noted that to become a killer, you need to devote yourself entirely to it, and will ask if it is worth it. Putting on a t-shirt, Lai Yihan replied that he was not afraid of death, and that he wanted to die nobly like a real killer. The main character asked why he didn't kill him, adding that he would have left safely. He shouted that he had his own professional principles, and if he was paid, then he would help, and killing for him is a job, not a hobby, and if no one hired him, therefore he will not kill him. Yu Sheng asked him that it was because he couldn't, and when he got up, he said that he was beginning to believe that he was a hitman, and added that the killer hadn't awakened in him yet, asking who would hire him. Lai Yihan replied that he had only come of age half a month ago, and that he would soon be going through the awakening ceremony, so he lied about his age and received the order. But he didn't think that there was such a big difference between an awakened and an unawakened person, even if he had only awakened a spoon. Lai Yihan remembers being pierced by a spoon. Yu Sheng started to leave and told him to get treated and remember to clean the floors, adding that he should take out the trash at the entrance when he left. Wei Yihan asked him if he was letting him go. Standing near the door, Yu Sheng turned to him and told him that he could go when he finished everything he said, otherwise he would owe him his life, and that if necessary, he would find him, so he had to leave. Remembering, he added that the awakened ones weren't as strong as he thought. 100 years ago, the forces of Kai were resurrected, and then the evil spirits rebelled. Huge monsters like a gorilla with a toothy mouth on its stomach, a pterodactyl, and a worm are rampaging in a cloud of dust. Evil spirits were rampant, threatening the human realm, but fortunately, the first awakened ones appeared. A man runs away in fear from a huge paw that destroys the stone walls. Sacrificing their strength and lives, the first awakened ones establish the 4 great outposts. Men in armor fight a huge red dragon. These 4 outposts are the Evil Spirit Control Outpost, Dawn Outpost, Dome Outpost, and Demon Outpost. They stop evil spirits, and human masters stand guard over them, not letting evil pass. Yu Sheng walks down the street and hears a guy standing on the street with 2 other guys, shouting that the evil spirits control outpost has failed, explaining that monsters have appeared in Xinhai, and many people have been injured. On the phone screen, you can see the Minotaur. The guys stare in shock at the phone screen, shouting about how this could have happened and what the Ministry of Exorcism is doing. One of them said that it was getting restless and noted that nothing had happened here yet. Yu Sheng walked in the opposite direction and stopped in front of a small shop. A fat man yawns, sitting on a wooden chair, notices the main character and, putting a paper bag on the counter, says that the goods are here. The protagonist took the package, and the man told him that this was the last time, and now they were even. Before leaving, Yu Sheng waved at him and said, "See you later." The man, grinning maliciously, repeated after him and, leaving the store, said that they would not meet again soon. Behind the counter, in a field, lies an equally plump man, dead. The main character is sitting on a sofa in his house and takes out a red demonic crystal from a bag, the quintessence that evil spirits create after absorbing human life forces. He stands up from the sofa, picking up a crossbow, and has placed 4 crossbows around the room, tying a red string to them. Then he sits down on the floor, closes his eyes, holding 4 red threads in his hands. 3 red crystals fly and glow in front of him, and behind him is a translucent red egg. Outpost for the suppression of evil spirits. Men in red cloaks with hoods walk up the mountain. They notice an elderly man with white hair and a mustache with a beard who is sitting on a rock and says that the road is closed. One of the men smiled, apologized, and said they just wanted to pass. The elderly man opens his eyes and shouts to them again that the road is closed. Tensing, the man in the red raincoat asked what if he insisted. A staff appeared in front of the elderly man, surrounded by yellow and dark blue energy, and he shouted, "Death." The cloaked men are horrified to see a swirl of dark blue water above their heads, and one of them, folding his hands over his head, said that they were just joking and that his divine instruction has served the human race for a long time, sacrificing everything. He added that they wouldn't dare challenge it and would leave right away. As they turned around, the older man asked them what they wanted, which he let them pass. Smiling nervously, the man in the raincoat asked him if he had any advice. Surrounded by yellow energy, the elderly man said that when they returned, they should tell their divine throne to change its name and call themselves Unclean Instruction, because they don't care about people. He added that if he didn't have to defend this place where it's not appropriate to raise a hand, they would be dead by now. With a nervous grin, the man in the raincoat thanked him for the advice and said that he would pass it on. The elderly man looked after the cloaked men as they left. The staff, surrounded by blue and yellow energy, moved towards the elderly man, who closed his eyes again. A week later, Yu Sheng is still sitting on the floor of his room, 2 crystals lying on the ground, gray, and one floating in front of him, almost completely colored gray. The main character's phone started ringing. The last crystal, completely losing its red color, fell to the ground, and the main character paid attention to the ringing phone. He picked up the phone. Liu Qingfeng asked if Yu Sheng was doing this, to which the main character replied in the affirmative. Liu Qingfeng told him to go back to school tomorrow morning, and that a person from the Ministry of Exorcism would come, assess the trained students, and allocate resources for the best. He added that this assessment is very important, only one will pass, and that it doesn't matter if Yu Sheng can do it, but he should try. The main character agrees, and he asks why his father does not answer. He replied that he believed that the prison did not allow the use of a telephone. Liu Qingfeng looked at his phone in disbelief, and then remembered that he had turned in his father for dating prostitutes. Yu Sheng glanced at the calendar and noted that there were 312 days left. The next day, the main character sits at his desk in the classroom with a bored look. The girl with pink hair tells her friends that she doesn't know if they will choose her, and that she also wants to become the best and alone chase away 1,000 monsters. One of her friends replies that if he is not chosen, then he will fly away. A voice shouted out, indicating that the teacher had come. Liu Qingfeng walked into the classroom and leaned his hands on the table loudly as he reported that the notification had just arrived and the situation had changed. He said that this time, not only the Ministry of Exorcism but also the reserve officers of the Ministry of Security had come from Xingli, and that the grading format had changed and each school had fielded 5 students to be eliminated. The guy with the blue hair was mentally asking to be selected, and the girl with the blonde hair was thinking that even if she was eliminated, she wanted to shine her face among these lucky people. Wei Qingfeng pointed his finger at the classroom and said that from their class, the headmaster decided to choose Yu Sheng. The entire class turned to look at him and protested. One of the guys objected that Yu Sheng was a weakling and they should choose Hai Mu. Liu Qingfeng shouted for the class to be quiet. He asked them that they do not agree and believe that this is not fair, and says that there is no justice in this life and that if they were treated unfairly, then you need to endure and improve yourself until one day they will not break that injustice, and it is useless to shout here. The students looked down, and Liu Qingfeng told Yu Sheng to go to the headmaster's office and that the headmaster wanted to meet him. He agreed indifferently. The headmaster tells Yu Sheng that he is still so cheerful and asks if his father is okay. He replies that fraud in a criminal city is worth a lot. Liu Qingfeng and the headmaster looked at him awkwardly, and the girl next to the headmaster covered her mouth while laughing. The principal coughed with a smile and said that this certification checks not only the students, but also the school, and that Mobai is a small town. The 3 schools are not very famous, so the management is planning to merge. Folding his hands in front of his face, the headmaster said that who will be the headmaster of the new school most likely depends on this certification, so everyone will benefit, and told him not to give in at all. Yu Sheng said, "The price." The director asked again, puzzled. The main character explained that according to the rules of the criminal city, if someone asks a person for something, he must pay him in return, and that he will not do anything for free. The director replied that he would get into the exam, and it would be beneficial for the 2 of them. Yu Sheng said that as far as he understood, he needed to, that he had taken it up, and the exam was just a ticket that someone had to finance. Showing the director one finger, he told him that it was a fee and that in a crime city, people who don't follow the rules die quickly. The headmaster thought about what kind of place this was, and while shaking his hands, he said that he would give him 3 level 1 crystals. The main character agreed and asked if it would be necessary to kill, which surprised the director and the girl next to him. The director jumped up and told him not to kill anyone. Yu Sheng said it was forbidden to kill outside of the criminal city and added that 3 soul stones were missing. The headmaster opened his mouth in shock and told him to rest on the school bus, then started to say something about the other students, but changed his mind and told him not to worry about them and not to kill anyone. The main character agreed. Yu Sheng is sitting on the bus seat and 3 students approach him. The blonde-haired guy introduced himself as Zhao Zicheng from 9B, then introduced the red-haired girl and the blue-haired guy as Lai Kai and Yang Ruozin, and asked for his name. Yu Sheng introduced himself. Zhao Zicheng said that he found out that this time the mayor of Moj will be secretly attending the assessment, but their Mobai is very small, and Moj doesn't have much strength. He explained that Premier Sun is also a Moj elder and believes that the best talents come from there, and that before Mobai also came out master defenders, they gave resources, then raised a new generation, masters left, and newcomers became defenders. He told him that if he joined the Moj, he would become famous, and no matter who was chosen, everyone would follow the exam, so this was a unique opportunity to become successful. Thinking about it, Zhao Zicheng said that other schools also have many masters, and in his opinion, I choose 1 and the remaining 3 to help, so the chosen one has a better chance, but it is difficult to win. The blue-haired guy said that he would obviously win Zhao, explaining that his father was the head of the Mobai security department, and Zhao Zicheng had been selected for the assessment. He said that one word from the main character, and he can count on them. With a graceful wave of his hair, Zhao Zicheng said that since this was the case, then he would have to do it willy-nilly. With a smile, he told Yu Sheng to relax and that the prospects would be bright with him. Yu Sheng asked him that his father was the head of the security department, and he said yes. Yu Sheng said that his father is currently in prison. Zhao Zicheng smiled and said that if he didn't break anything serious, he would be released as soon as he said so. The main character shook his head and asked if he could extend the time limit. The man looked at him quizzically, and Yu Sheng told him to forget it. Zhao Zicheng thought about how much one would have to hate one's own father to put him in prison. Yu Sheng glanced at it and thought about why the gray energy wasn't exuding this time, assuming that he had summoned it incorrectly. The bus pulled away and the main character looked out the window. Zhao Zicheng, noticing that they were leaving, asked about the fact that the certification would be conducted outside the city, and suggested that the driver might have taken the wrong road, explaining that there was an incident in Xinhai. It was not safe outside the city at all. The driver replied with a grin that there was no mistake, and they temporarily changed the place, saying that there is an old factory not far from the city, there is a lot of space, and the city is not so convenient. He told them to calm down and explained that they had people from Moj with them, and there was no danger. Zhao Zicheng was satisfied with the answer and asked the driver to call out when they arrived while they slept. The driver agreed with a grin. They've arrived. There are 3 factories on the territory of the plant. As Zhao Zicheng got off the bus, he noticed that they had arrived, and everything was as it was said. Yu Sheng noticed Liu Qingfeng and noted that he had also arrived. Zhao Zicheng said that Du Zhu also came, saying that he was a 6-pattern talent. Then he remarked on how big his beard was, and the other guy marveled at how he had grown a beard. Zhao Zicheng noticed the main character walking towards the factory and told him that even though they didn't agree, he hoped that he would avoid Du Zhu because he was quite strong. He said, yeah. He told Yu Sheng that he hoped he wouldn't lose, calling him their second. The bus driver with a cigarette in his mouth looked after the students walking towards the factory with a grin, then threw it on the ground and extinguished it with his shoe, turned around and left. He entered a computer room where a man in a blue shirt was sitting, who asked him how he was doing, to which the driver replied that it was not very good. Sitting down in a chair, he explained with a grin that they have low vigilance, they easily believe strangers and think naively, and concluded that a remote city with self-government is just a dream. Then, he pointed his finger at Yu Sheng on the screen and said that this guy should be interested. Liu Qingfeng tells the students lined up in front of him that he is leading the team this time, that the topics of the assessment are still unknown, and that they need to wait for the people from the Ministry of Exorcism, and then it will become clear. He added that this was a unique opportunity and told them to be careful and only act with a clear head, and that only in this way would they have a chance of success, thinking that he didn't know if Yu Sheng would be able to surprise him again. The students looked back at the factory gates that had opened, and Jin drove through them at high speed and braked, driving left side first by inertia. A man with a cigarette and dark glasses got out of the car, noticed Liu Qingfeng and walked over to him, put his hand on his shoulder and noted how many years they had not seen each other, asking how he got here. He replied that he works as a teacher. The man was surprised and glanced at Liu Qingfeng's hand with the missing pinky finger, saying that it was also good and that it wasn't as dangerous as theirs. Grinning, he glanced at the students and asked them if they were his students. The girl with red hair, trembling and smiling awkwardly, asked if he was from the ministry or from Moj, and the guy with dark hair said that he was creepy. Yu Sheng looked at the man indifferently in silence. The man approached the main character and asked if he was afraid of him. He asked why he should be afraid of him, and the latter laughed and told Liu Qingfeng that he was interesting. Then, with a smile, he introduced himself as Luo Tian from the Ministry of Exorcism of Jiangbei Province, captain of the 3rd Squad and 5th Generation Awakened. Luo Tian added that he will not talk about the rest of his achievements, because there is nothing interesting there and there is nothing to brag about. Returning to the topic of the assessment, he thought about it and was silent for a while. Then he smiled and laughed and said that the guys should win the fight and the winner stays and the loser goes. One of the students asked what it was all about, and the students started whispering to each other. Liu Qingfeng looked at Luo Tian with a smile and thought about how he was acting as usual. Luo Tian summoned a huge blue wolf and said, "Then let's start." The wolf charged forward and disappeared, leaving a large glowing blue ring on the ground. Luo Tian announced that this was a ring, and if they gave up or went out of the circle, it was considered a defeat. He pointed a finger at 2 guys, one with blonde hair and the other with dark hair, and told them to fight. They faced each other inside the ring. The dark-haired guy folded his hands in front of him and said that he was the first, Xiao Zifeng, and asked for guidance. Running away, he leapt at the blonde-haired boy, who let out a battle cry, and they began to fight in a comical cloud of dust. Looking at the fight, Liu Qingfeng noted that they didn't have a single bit of martial power, but added that it was nothing and they weren't from any big city, so they had never been taught martial arts. Xiao Zifeng, who was standing over the blonde-haired guy lying on the ground, holding his hand and covered in bruises, again said that he was the first, Xiao Zifeng, and asked not to laugh at his performance. Luo Tian laughed and declared his victory. He then pointed his finger at Yu Sheng and Du Zhu, announcing that they would fight next. Du Zhu, flexing his arms, said to the protagonist with a smirk, telling him that he would see him beat him up. As Liu Qingfeng watched Yu Sheng leave, he thought that he hoped that he would be able to surprise him. Yu Sheng and Du Zhu entered the ring. The main character asked if the weapon could be used. Luo Tian replied with a smile that he could use any weapon he wanted. He thanked me. One of the guys asked if he wasn't stupid, saying that he asked if it was okay to use a gun. Another guy added that if he can use it, then others can too. The third one said that Du Zhu was going to turn Yu Sheng into an invalid. Zhao Zicheng raised his fist in the air and cheered loudly for the main character. Luo Tian exhaled smoke and told them to start. Yu Sheng touched the ground with his hand, ready to spring. He leaped forward, and Du Zhu, who was armed with a wooden club, was surprised and confused. The main character ran past him, and Du Zhu's hand spurted blood, and he dropped his weapon. Du Zhu grabbed his arm with a cry, and Yu Sheng stood behind him, holding the blade with 2 fingers. Du Zhu fell to his knees, holding onto his hand that was bleeding. Yu Sheng placed his hand on the opponent's face, taking out the dagger from behind his back, and placed the opponent on the ground. When Duzu saw the knife, he shouted in a panic that it was just a competition and asked him not to kill. Yu Sheng raised the knife with a cool face and stabbed it into the ground next to Duzu, who was screaming in fear. With tears in his eyes, he shouted at the protagonist that he was bullying him. With his hands in his pants pockets and laughing, Luo Tian walked a little closer, addressing Yu Sheng. The main mouth opened Duzu's mouth and stuck his hand in. Luo Tian asked what he was doing. Yu Sheng pulled out Duzu's tooth and asked why there was no poison, and assumed that he was hiding it somewhere else. Luo Tian scratched his head and asked if he was looking for poison. Yu Sheng replied that he was looking while holding Duzu's hair. Continuing to search it, the main character said that he could not find where he was hiding the poison. With a nervous smile, Luo Tian asked if there was a possibility that he wasn't hiding it. The main character turned around and said that this could not be, because if he was captured by the enemy and he did not have the opportunity to kill himself, then his torment would be worse than death. Duzu lay on the ground in disbelief and thought about why he didn't hide the poison, because he could have killed himself anytime. But then he came to his senses and thought about why he would hide the poison, because he has a wonderful life and doesn't want to kill himself. Luo Tian asked Yu Sheng if he was from Crime City. The main character replied that this was true and asked if it was true that people do not hide poison behind his back. Luo Tian turned to Liu Qingfeng and asked if he knew about this. He asked what this had to do with his student and explained that according to the rules, it didn't matter if you committed a heinous crime and it wasn't discussed after you left. He approached Luo Tian and said that if he didn't kill again, then one day without mistakes was enough for him and he would forever be his disciple. Luo Tian turned around, scratched his head, and said that it didn't matter, explaining that his enemies were evil spirits, not humans. He said that they would finish it today. As he left, he said that the certification process would continue tomorrow and that the factory was big, so they would sleep there. After opening the door to his jeep, he told Liu Qingfeng that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and offered her a drink. The latter replied that his students were still here, and Luo Tian clicked his tongue in frustration as he sat in the car and said that it was hard to tell if his disciple would make it out of the Forbidden City. The rat is scratching something on the floor. Heroes find in the factory building, outside the window at night. One of the guys complains that it's very dirty and he doesn't know where to sit, and he assumed that there must be cockroaches or rats here, and said that he doesn't want to spend the night here. Zhao Zicheng approached Liu Qingfeng, who was sitting on the floor near a brick wall, and said that he didn't understand something. The latter smilingly told him to speak, and he clarified that the higher the talent, the higher the level in the future, and asked why the person from the ministry didn't look at their talents. Liu Qingfeng replied that talent alone can't lead to the top, but geniuses are always lacking. The students turned at the sound of his voice. He said that with such a large population, the appearance of a genius is common, and if only talent was needed, then people would have suppressed the evil spirits long ago. Liu Qingfeng got to his feet and said that he had met many geniuses, and asked how many of them had ascended. He said that to think of his talent as an extraordinary gift, and to think of himself as superior to all others, was equal to arrogance, and that he had seen the simplest things wrong, and that he had seen the lucky ones of the famous schools enter the outpost of the evil spirits, tremble with fear, and be beheaded without killing a single one. Zhao Zicheng blushed and looked away, gritting his teeth. Duzu was looking at Liu Qingfeng, a bruise on his cheek from the impact. Liu Qingfeng shouted about how this world was most lacking in genius, and that in Moj, anyone would be stronger than them, and asked at what cost. He explained that they did not pass through the 4 great outposts, where a human life means nothing and is cheaper than a sip of water or a piece of bread. He remembers a huge monster destroying the city while people were fleeing in panic. Liu Qingfeng said that the ability to survive was not a talent, but character and luck, and that without determination, a cool head, and sufficient discretion, they would only be a mockery. The students looked down at the floor. While sitting on the floor, Liu Qingfeng told them to take a break, explaining that the assessment was tomorrow. Zhao Zicheng replied that he wasn't that tired, and that it was so dirty that he couldn't sleep. Liu Qingfeng asked them about their disdain, and whether they could not sleep among the severed limbs, and whether they knew what it was like to fall asleep without knowing if you would wake up. He shouted for everyone to sit down and said that compared to the 4 outposts, it was just a small thing. The students obeyed and sat down on the floor. He told them to look at Yu Sheng and that he just sat down, noting that he was no better than any of them, asking if he was arrogant. Yu Sheng, who had been sitting quietly on the floor all this time, opened his eyes and was perplexed to see the students' stares directed at him. He got up and Zhao Zicheng asked where he was going, to which he replied that he was going to the toilet. Zhao Zicheng said that the main character, although gloomy, was a good guy. The girl with the red hair asked what exactly he showed it with. He couldn't find the words to answer her. Yu Sheng cautiously looked around the corner of the building where the security camera was located. Hiding behind the wall, he thought that this must be the last camera, and asked if there was anything else in the factory. He noted that the whole plant is stuffed with them, and that there is probably a place where they are not. He realized where it was and began to creep along the corridor, trying not to be noticed by the cameras. Oh went to the door of the building and opened it a crack, peering through the crack. The voice on the other side of the door asked if the other person had any information about Liu Qingfeng, and the other person said no. The man in the white shirt said that, judging by the conversation, he was also at the outpost of the suppression of evil spirits and that he was a good teacher, but he was wasting his talent here. His interlocutor in a blue shirt agreed and said that he wanted to offer him a transfer to the regional center and that his pedagogical methods deserve attention. The man in the cap noticed the main character eavesdropping and peeking through the door crack and grinned, thinking what a funny guy he was. Yu Sheng returned to the room where everyone else was sleeping. Liu Qingfeng sat on the floor without opening his eyes and asked him if he had already prepared his lone wolf plan. He didn't answer and sat down on the floor in silence. Yu Sheng and Liu Qingfeng opened their eyes when they noticed a sound outside. The main character took out a crossbow, and Liu Qingfeng waved his head, deciding that it was none of his business. As he watched the main character walk out the door, he thought that loners often had a tragic ending. Luo Tian stands on a cliff, looking down at the factory from above, holding a large dog-like monster by its chain, and grins, saying that it's time for them to find out what the awakened ones who dare to sleep in the open really face. He let go of the chain and lit a cigarette with a lighter, leaning back against his car, and the enraged monster rushed towards the factory. Men sitting in a room with monitors noticed a monster running through the factory grounds. They shouted, asking why a demon was here, and one of them asked what Luoyun had done. Another shouted, asking if he really wanted these students to kill the evil spirits, adding that they had not even graduated from school yet. They turned to a man in a bus driver's uniform who was sleeping peacefully on the couch and shouted at him to wake up. Irritated, he removed his cap from his face and told them to sit down. He asked how much trouble a single demon could cause, and said it was a good thing, noting that they had raised cram makers, and asked if they had learned anything, and added that it was even good for them to look at the blood. The man in the blue shirt objected, asking him if he had thought about the consequences, adding that playing with life is not a joke. He took off his jacket and said it was his job to decide if there was going to be trouble. The man in the blue shirt hesitantly agreed. The captain lit a cigarette and said with a smile that a little activity wasn't bad either, and told them to start to see what they were worth. The demon burst into the room where the students were sleeping, and they ran from it in fear, asking how the demon got here, calling for help. The wooden club smashed into the demon's face, sending it flying. Duzu stood in front of one of the students, telling Tom to be afraid because he would protect him, and stood in a fighting stance, armed with a wooden club. The demon charged at Duzu and slashed at his arm with its claws, causing blood to gush out. Zhao Zicheng kicked the demon in the face, told everyone not to be afraid, and that they needed to unite, and then the demon wouldn't be able to harm them. He took a fighting stance in front of Duzu, who was holding onto the arm that showed the wound from the demon's strike. Students called out to the teacher, shouting that they were scared and that they wanted to go home. Liu Qingfeng, looking earnestly at the security camera, asked if they really thought it was good for them. Looking at Zhao Zicheng and Duzu on the monitor screen, the captain said that they were brave, if a little stupid, because they didn't know that the hellhound's strongest part was its head, adding that such stubbornness wasn't bad either. As he headed for the door, he said that Yu Sheng annoyed him. The men at the computers caught themselves and asked where Yu Sheng was. The captain smirked and told them not to look for him unless they were office rats after all. He opened the door where Yu Sheng was standing and asked him about the fact that he had come to sit down. The main character entered the room, and one of the men asked how he got here, to which he replied that he came on footsteps. The man thought about how to follow such obscure footprints here, wondering if everyone from the crime city was so strange. Another man asked why he didn't go to help his classmates. Yu Sheng, sitting down on the sofa, said that because they won't die. The captain said with a serious face that he wouldn't help them, and if he didn't save them, they would die. The protagonist calmly replied that that hellhound was weak, and they wouldn't die even if he didn't help. The captain objected, shouting that if her powers increased, to which the protagonist replied that they would not increase. He replied that he would specifically strengthen it, asking what then. Yu Sheng gave him a serious look and replied that if he did, he would kill them indirectly, even intentionally, explaining that according to Article 75 of the Moj Penal Code, this was punishable by 7 years imprisonment or death. The captain opened his mouth in surprise and asked him if he would save them if he went to deal with them now. The two men behind him looked at each other, thinking that he was nervous. Yu Sheng shook his head and said that he wouldn't save her. The captain retorted that they were his classmates and asked if he really wanted to watch them die while thinking about how he could be so selfish. Yu Sheng calmly replied that he couldn't handle him, and that all he could do was die with them, and said that it was better to report to the police and get a benefit instead. He explained that according to the new Moj school policy, if a student dies while completing a task, there is a payment of between 30 and 50,000, and if, as a witness, you report the killer yourself, you will also receive a reward. He He said that if 10 students were killed, an arrest warrant would be issued as a high-risk criminal and he would be able to get a tenner, and asked if he would kill them. The captain said nothing in reply. There are 3 men standing in the forest, one dressed in a business suit with a white jacket on his shoulders, another in a chef's suit, and the third in rags. They cried out, "It was with God." A man in a suit with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail said that today the starlight was washing over them, and God was watching over them. He raised his hands to heaven and exclaimed that if the plan succeeded this time, they might have a chance to rise up and become God's servants, and that this was the greatest mercy. His face tightened and he said that this night, these smartest students from Mobi were destined to die. They started chanting in unison, "Destined to die." Then they clasped their hands in prayer, and the man in the suit began to pray that these lives would be their price and that God would atone for their sins. The others followed him, asking God to atone for their sins. The man in the suit announced with a smile that they would wait half an hour as planned and then start. Beichen Cheng, Mo's division, office of the division chief. Division Chief Lin, a man with receding hairline glasses, is sitting at a desk, scribbling on a piece of paper. His phone rang, and the voice on the phone greeted him. Lin said to speak and put his phone on the table, putting it on speaker. The voice on the phone said it was really nothing and he had a favor to do. He said that in 10 minutes the motorcade will pass from the north to the south of the city, and he hopes that the security will not disturb him. Lin, still writing, asked if they were heretics. The voice on the phone answered, "The heresy of 1,000 gods." The boss asked for less chatter and asked what the price was. The voice replied that Chief Lin had arranged for schools from faraway cities, including Mobi, where it hadn't finished yet, with a total of 12 students, and asked if he thought it was possible. Lin's face tightened, and he replied that the deal always had a sponsor, and if they continued to play along, he would have no choice. He continued to write on a piece of paper. The voice replied that he was the customer, and that he had no right to bargain, and said that if Mog, full of hypocrisy, allowed the poor children to die, he would have nothing to object to. Lin agreed and tapped his phone screen, promising that if one person died in Mobi, in half a year, everyone in Jiangbei province would rise up again and destroy their sect, the 1,000 Gods heresy. The captain thinks he's lost a lot of money, 30,000 apiece, 300,000 in total. Yu Sheng asked if they could copy the recording to him. The captain asked him what he wanted to do. The main character with a calm face replied that during the assessment, the answers are unknown, and if you mistakenly think that someone is really in danger and save them, you can get a reward. He added, 12 people, a total of 360,000. The captain shouted at him, calling him a scoundrel, that it wasn't fair to the other students, and said that he would definitely report him to Moj to be kicked out. The 2 men gave the captain a thumbs up and told him that he was being praised and paid their respects. When Yu Sheng left, he said that he would give half of it. The captain smiled and said that it was a good cooperation and that he would settle everything. The 2 men looked at the captain in disappointment. Zhao Zicheng and Du Zhu stand in a fighting stance side by side in front of the moving hellhound. Zhao Zicheng asked if Du Zhu was holding up. He replied that he was fine, and he was thinking about how Yu Sheng had predicted everything by carrying a knife everywhere. Zhao Zicheng said that he didn't know where he had run off to, and if he came back, he would call him father. They were surprised to see the main character who was approaching the hellhound menacingly from behind. Zhao Zicheng called him Papa, and he replied that it didn't suit him very well. The man got angry and asked him where he'd been. The main character scratched his head and replied that he was in the toilet. Zhao Zicheng shouted that he couldn't help but hear this, and he replied that he wasn't really very good at lying. Zhao Zicheng and Du Zhu remained silent in disappointment. Yu Sheng calmly walked towards them, passing by the hellhound, which surprised her. Du Zhu shouted at him in surprise about how he just passed by without looking at the hellhound, and said that he didn't know why, but thought they would be safer together. Yu Sheng pondered and asked how much he could hurt them. They remained silent, puzzled. Zhao Zicheng crouched on the ground, holding his chest and shaking, and shouted that he was in pain. Yu Sheng turned to Du Zhu, who exhaled. Screaming in pain, he tumbled against the wall, holding his back, and shouted that he was in pain. Yu Sheng paid attention to the camera from above, turned to the hellhound and said that it turns out that such a ferocious demon treats his comrades, adding that they, the young Moj, fight for people and swear to protect them with their lives. The hellhound charged at him angrily. The captain, looking at the situation through the monitor screen with a smile, noticed how well he spoke, and said that Mog would immediately be moved by this and send money, and that if you think about it rationally, there is nothing wrong. The men behind him looked at him in disappointment. Then the captain leaned back in his chair and clicked his tongue, saying that he had made a mistake in putting the hound under Yu Sheng's control and had given him more room to maneuver, and then he would not cooperate with him. The man in the blue shirt noticed something in surprise and, pointing at the monitor, put his hand on the captain's shoulder and asked him to look at it. He glanced at the monitor where Yu Sheng was punching the hound, shouting that protecting his comrade was his sacred duty, and that the human torch would not go out. The captain's eyes widened in surprise. The protagonist struck a pose next to Zhao Zicheng, who was trembling with his hand on the ground and holding his chest, and shouted that it turned out that such a ferocious demon had attacked his comrade, starting to talk about what would have happened if he hadn't arrived in time. The captain furiously raised his fists in front of him and shouted that he was overplaying, and they would not believe him and that he should not deprive him of freebies. Yu Sheng noticed that the camera had moved. The hellhound lay motionless on the ground, surrounded by the students. Zhao Zicheng asked if this was the end. The students looked frustrated, and Du Zhu thought about how they were all students here, wondering why there was such a big gap between them and if they were really so useless. A man in rags burst through the doors of the building, shouting that the gods were with him. A bowl inlaid with blue stone appeared above his head, surrounded by magical energy. The man was smiling madly. Zhao Zicheng was surprised to note that this was a level 1 awakened person. The disciples asked in surprise where the heretic came from. The ragged-looking heretic smiled ominously as he reached for the bowl floating in the air. Zhao Zicheng said that he had heard that heretics kill mercilessly. Du Zhu nervously gritted his teeth and asked if this would be the topic of the assessment. Zhao Zicheng looked down and said that a level 1 awakened person was much stronger than a hellhound, and their only hope right now was Yu Sheng. Everyone turned to look at the main character. The students pretended to be in great pain while holding their heads, and Zhao Zicheng shouted that his wound was still in great pain. Yu Sheng looked at them questioningly. Zhao Zicheng smiled nervously and asked in his mind if they were smart. The main character stood in front of the heretic and said that killing people is forbidden by law. Grabbing the bowl, the heretic rushed towards the main character and shouted, "First!" Yu Sheng dodged, and the heretic slammed the bowl on the ground, holding it by the bottom. With a sinister face, the heretic praised the protagonist's skills and said that the gods would like it. His punch with the bowl made a hole in the floor. Then, he noticed that Yu Sheng had disappeared. While aiming the crossbow, the main character asked why killing is forbidden and lowered the crossbow. The heretic looked at the disciples and said that then he would kill them first. Someone thought of letting Yu Sheng continue. Holding a bowl of radiant energy in his hand and smiling maliciously, the heretic shouted that the gods were with him and their radiance was eternal. Yu Sheng leapt at the heretic from behind, holding the blade with 2 fingers. The heretic opened his mouth in surprise. After bringing the blade up behind the heretic's back, the protagonist remembered that he couldn't kill and redirected the blow by jumping, cutting the heretic's hand. Looking down in horror at his cut hand, the heretic shouted again that the gods were with him and their radiance was eternal. Yu Sheng leaped away from the heretic, who was glowing with yellow energy. The heretic, grinning ominously, quickly closed the distance and raised the bowl to strike. Yu Sheng dodged the blow, and the heretic missed, shouting, "Die." The heretic threw punches with a bowl and a foot, but the main character dodged all of them. Liu Qingfeng remembered that the heresy had somehow returned. The captain, panicking, shouted into the microphone that there was an incident during the assessment and a heretic appeared and told Luo Yun to deal with it. Liu Qingfeng shouted at the protagonist that killing a heretic was allowed while he was dodging another bowl hit. As he continued to dodge, Liu Qingfeng shouted at him that killing a heretic was not only illegal, but there was a reward of 100,000. Yu Sheng stands in the battle headquarters with a serious face, holding the blade with 2 fingers. The heretic, grinning ominously, swung the bowl for another blow. The protagonist grabbed the hand that was holding the bowl and cut the heretic's throat with a quick flick of the blade. The heretic was surprised to find blood gushing from his neck and fell to the ground. The students shouted in shock that he had killed him, that he was very cruel, and asked if this was a certification. The students looked at the main character in shock and fear, and some of them fell to the ground. Yu Sheng gave Liu Qingfeng a serious look and asked why he hadn't seen the law that he mentioned. Approaching him with an equally serious face, he replied that only by truly awakening would he be able to understand the rules. Du Zhu shouted in shock that Yu Sheng had taken a life. Liu Qingfeng asked, standing next to the calm protagonist, if this was their first time seeing a dead person, if they thought Yu Sheng was too cruel, and why they decided to kill back then. He pointed angrily at them and shouted that if Yu Sheng hadn't stopped him, they would have died, and added that he would look at them when they disappointed everyone one day. He shouted to everyone around him to look at him, at his wounds and his eyes, to face the fear that could overcome them. Zhao Zicheng, standing next to the terrified Du Zhu, said that he wasn't afraid and that his father was the head of the security department. Trembling with fear, Du Zhu said that if he wasn't afraid, then he wasn't afraid either. Liu Qingfeng glanced at the students who were looking down awkwardly and said that it might be best for them to remain ordinary people and that they would return to school tomorrow. Then, he turned to Yu Sheng and told her to go with him. The two of them walked down the street, and Liu Qingfeng asked the protagonist about what he had killed before, noting that the experience was noticeable, and he confirmed it. He asked when the first time was. Yu Sheng replied that he was about 5 or 6 years old and he didn't remember exactly. The man looked at him in surprise. Then the main character caught on to something and said that it's not forbidden to kill in a criminal city. The man was surprised by his sudden outburst, holding a cigarette in his hand. He then put a cigarette in his mouth and took out a lighter to light it, and confessed to Yu Sheng that he was the best he had ever met, and said that just a little more and with his talents, he would become invincible. Holding a lighter to his cigarette, he added that he would not comment on his past, but said that as a teacher, he hoped he had a good heart. He told him never to point a gun at people. Yu Sheng replied that he would try, and began to say, but Liu Qingfeng looked at him questioningly, and he said that today he decided to fight for the right cause and get the Moj award. Liu Qingfeng smiled and replied that if Moj didn't give him money after saving people, then he would give it to him. He noticed that the man had taken out a knife and asked him what he was doing. Yu Sheng asked about the fact that evil spirits are valued and said that he would go cut them up and then sell them. Liu Qingfeng said that the newly transformed ones are cheap and their meat is bitter. Yu Sheng agreed and went to the door. Liu Qingfeng noticed Luo Tian walking up to him. Luo Tian said that he had resolved a small misunderstanding. Liu Qingfeng asked if he could be trusted. Luo Tian replied with a smile, telling him not to delay the reward for his certification, otherwise he would get angry. He added, and if he finds out that you took the bounty. Liu Qingfeng replied that it was better to hurry up, otherwise he will come to kill him in a few years. Yu Sheng walks down the corridor and, after looking back, entered the door. The captain, smiling, called him inside and invited him to meet him, introducing himself as Wang Wenxuan, and said that today they had settled everything with him. Smiling, he slapped his chest and said that he had saved 2 people, he would cut the record, and they would get double the reward. Yu Sheng testily replied that it didn't count, explaining that it was Wang Wenxuan's job to protect students, while cutting back for money went against the rules and those who didn't follow them would die very soon. Wang Wenxuan smiled nervously and thought about how he didn't think Yu Sheng had a thing for honesty. He agreed, and said that if they ever had to work together again, he should call, he was his eternal patron, and anyone who stood in the way of their wealth would die. Yu Sheng replied that it was illegal to kill people, and if he even thought about killing them, he would report them to Moj. Wang Wenxuan smiled awkwardly as he scratched the back of his head and replied that he wasn't so determined anymore. Yu Sheng thought about how he would consider who to work with later, and he recalled the 3rd point of the Crime City Code, which says never get close to fools, regardless of whether they are friends or foes. The sun rose over the abandoned factory. Du Zhu and Zhao Zicheng look at the dead body of the heretic, sitting next to him on the floor. The students see Wang Wenxuan at the door and are happy that they are going home. Students ride the bus, some of them still shocked by what happened. Zhao Zicheng nudged Yu Sheng and called out, saying that when he came back, he would help him with that matter. Yu Sheng looked at him questioningly, then remembered how he had asked him to increase his father's sentence in prison. The main character smiled slightly as he placed his hand on Zhao Zicheng's shoulder and said, "All right, buddy." His eyes twinkled, and he was glad that Yu Sheng had given him permission. Du Zhu touched the main character's shoulder from behind and said that he wanted to see him, asking him to teach him how to kill. Yu Sheng scratched his head in puzzlement and asked why they all wanted to kill if they were too kind-hearted to kill, and added that it was against the law. The main character thought that people from the criminal city are friendlier, noting that it's only been a while, and they are already talking to him about the murder. Du Zhu replied that his tongue was not very good, and explained that he wanted to become stronger, and smiled awkwardly. The main character turned to him and gave him a thumbs up and told him to go bald, and then he would. Du Zhu remained silent with a disappointed face. Students get off the bus. Wang Wenxuan chuckles and asks Yu Sheng if they have had a good rest. The main character irritably replied that he had just come out, and the latter replied that he wasn't in a hurry, smiling awkwardly. Yu Sheng walked into the principal's office and said that he had completed the assignment. The director smiled and said that he had heard, but the results of the assessment had not yet arrived, and there was no specific list, and added that since this was already a deal, they would wait until everything was clear. Yu Sheng turned to Wang Wenxuan and asked what he thought he was at. He smiled and gave me 2 thumbs up and said I was right on the first one. The main character turned to the director and said that he was in the first place, to his bewilderment. The girl next to the director smiled awkwardly. The director thought that he was asking a passerby, and after asking for forgiveness, he asked who it was, pointing at Wang Wenxuan. The main character calmly replied that he seems to be from the provinces, and that, most likely, he decides everything on this certification. The director walked past Yu Sheng with a serious face, walked up to Wang Wenxuan, and while smiling and grabbing his hand with both of his own, noted that he was from the provincial ministry, asked for forgiveness, and said that it was no wonder that he was from the ministry because he was so young, promising, and handsome. The director then dramatically put his hand to his face and complained that they had neither the money nor the resources, and all they could do was watch for talent. Because they didn't have enough, they lived so modestly. Turning his gaze back to Wang Wenxuan, He asked which department he was from, telling the girl to quickly bring the tea. He accepted a cup of tea from the girl, smiling awkwardly, and replied that it was out of stock. The director got angry with a smile on the street, took the cup of tea from his hands and left with a serious face. Wang Wenxuan and the girl exchanged awkward glances. The director sat down in his chair and asked why they hadn't said he was out of reserve earlier. Yu Sheng asked about the promised reward while extending his hand. The headmaster put some blue crystals in his hand with an exasperated face. Yu Sheng squeezed them in his hand and smiled contentedly. Yu Sheng and Wang Wenxuan are walking down the corridor when the protagonist's phone suddenly rings. He picked up the phone, and Zhao Zicheng told him that his father was a very cool guy, explaining that he went to check on him today, but he wasn't in the prison cell at all and he was reading a policeman's hand. He added that he was envious, and with a sinister smile, he continued, saying that he was smart and under his guidance. Yu Sheng's father's crime had been successfully classified as committing lewd acts towards the female, and he wouldn't be out anytime soon. Yu Sheng gave a thumbs up with a smile and said that he would be there for the rest of his life. Yu Sheng and Wang Wenxuan walk through the main hall of the secret ministry. Wang Wenxuan tells the protagonist that this is a secret ministry unit and asked if he is impressed. He asked if he was going to take pictures of anything while Yu Sheng was calmly looking around. A girl working at the counter noticed Wang Wenxuan and asked in a puzzled manner how he came to be here. She picked up the phone and told Wang Wenruan that the sick Wang had come again. Another girl with short brown hair, holding the phone receiver in her hand, declared an emergency and put up a sign, temporarily closed. The crowd indignantly asked why they had just been working and why they had closed. Yu Sheng glanced at Wang Wenxuan, who was fiddling with his fingers awkwardly, and thought about not trusting chatterboxes, adding that this was something that the crime city had taught him. A girl with brown hair tied in 2 ponytails apologetically asked to contact them, explaining that their captain had gone on a mission. Many of the wounded were now in the hospital, adding that they would even give a reward for saving him. The girl in the black tie asked her not to panic and asked her to tell her exactly what had happened. She replied with tears in her eyes that she had heard that they were now fighting against heresy, and that there was a reward for saving people, and that if their captain died, they would not survive, and that he was fighting for the human race. The girl took out a thick black book signed as a political treatise and promised to help, asking them to wait while she checked out their policies. She quickly flipped through the pages and pointed to one of the lines, saying that there really is such a rule, but in times of war, anyone who has time should record a video. The girl with ponytails handed over the flash drive, smiling. The girl in the tie inserted a USB stick and looked at the computer monitor, pressing keys on the keyboard, and a video appeared on the screen in which several guys run towards a man in a suit, 2 raising their fists to strike, and the 3rd armed with a metal bat. There is an explosion, and the beaten boys walk away, leaning on each other, and the man in the suit is lying on the ground, leaning his back against the wall. The girl with the ponytail started crying again and, wiping her tears, asked them to help them with the task and delay the time, otherwise the captain would really die. The girl in the tie hesitantly replied that she had no such rights. She quickly got up from her chair and, after asking him to wait while she looked for the supervisor, ran away. Wang Wenxuan was surprised that this was also possible, noting that it was good that this crazy woman had an idea. Yu Sheng thought that they were professionals, but they had made a mistake by working together. Wang Wenxuan gritted his teeth and decided that he would take the risk by explaining that there were many things you wouldn't do for money. He ruffled the hair on his head and rushed to the girl behind the counter with tears in his eyes, shouting for her to help him, and that he also had information, and that their captain was also going to die soon, and he had no arms or legs left, just his head. He shouted that if she didn't give him a letter of recommendation, she would kill Guard Commander Beichen Cheng, a reserve officer. He glanced at the main character with one eye, thinking about getting them some help. Yu Sheng noticed the sinister figure of the man behind Wang Wenxuan. He said that if he wasn't mistaken, the person behind him was the one Wang Wenxuan was talking about, the captain. Wang Wenxuan's eyes widened in fright. He smiled nervously and trembled with fear. Then he put his hands on his belt and, with a forced smile, shouted that his captain was brave and powerful, and if he killed evil spirits at a distance of 10 paces, then there would be no one left for 1,000 paces around, and how he could die. The girl at the counter got angry, called him names, and called the next one. The captain asked Wang Wenxuan about how he said he was surviving with only his head. He turned around in fright, saying how lucky he was to meet him here, seeing a huge man looking down at him. His name is Chen Yimou. They looked at each other in silence, and Wang Wenxuan wrapped his arm around Chen Yimou's and leaned his head on it, saying that he would explain everything to him. He whispered something in his ear, and the man gritted his teeth in surprise and asked if it was true and if he was that cool. Wang Wenxuan smiled nervously and said yes. Chen Yimou glanced at Yu Sheng, walked up to him, and extended his hand to greet him, introducing himself as Chen Yimou. Wang Wenxuan chuckled as he thought of the captain's elegant name. Chen Yimou reached out to the main character's shoulder and said that he wouldn't talk too much, and that if anyone offended him in Beicheng, let him tell him and he would explain everything clearly to them. Yu Sheng, looking at his hand, said that he didn't like fights and that he only liked money. Chen Yimou chuckled, slapped his chest and told him to relax and look at him, explaining that he was willing to bet his head that he would get the money today. Yu Sheng thought about how things looked more and more suspicious. Chen Yimou gave a thumbs-up gesture to himself and walked up to the counter, saying that it was his turn now and that he would definitely succeed, thinking that he wouldn't ruin anything for him. The ponytail girl noticed him coming and turned around. A girl in a black tie brought a man with a receding hairline in a black suit, showing him where to go. Chen Yimou pushed the ponytail girl away and crossed his arms over his chest, saying that he would be the first and asking if they had heard his subordinate. He said that all he had left was his head and that he was going to die soon. The man in the suit and the girl in the tie looked at him questioningly. The man in the suit thought that it was clear that he was a demon war hero, but he was a bit of a mess almost every day. The man told Chen Yimou to wait for him to sort things out and asked the girl in the tie about the girl she had told him about. She pointed at the girl with ponytails, who was looking at them with tears on her face, and said that it was her. The man in the suit, angry, noted that there is such a talented old and young generation at the same time. He furiously asked the tie-wearing girl about the fact that she had just come, and shouted at her to remember those faces, pointing his finger at the ponytail girl and Chen Yimou, who were looking at them in disbelief, and blacklisted them, explaining that they were scammers. The girl in the tie fussily lowered her head and agreed.